I'd like to welcome everybody to the City Council of the City of Escalon, regular meeting of January 21st, 2020. Would you please join me in the salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Merkin?
Here.
Councilmember Kremick?
Here.
Councilmember Legero? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Alves?
Here.
Mayor Swift?
Here. Okay, and we are going to go straight to the consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature and are acted upon by a single action unless requested by an individual council member or member of the public for special consideration.
I'd move on special recommendation. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass the consent calendar as it appears. We will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who are opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes to approve the consent calendar 5-0. Staff communications.
Good evening. Couple of items. I actually will be out of the office this Thursday and Friday for our risk management meetings. I'd been communicating with the council regarding the communities meeting. And we had tentatively did for February 13th. I just want to share some concerns regarding the community center parking lot. I know a few of you know that we've had some issues with getting that completed. A couple with the weather and a couple with the contractor, and staff is not confident whether it will be done at that point on the 13th. We believe it will be, but I just want to put it out there in front of this that if we schedule it for the 13th, there may not be pavement on the parking lot.
I think it'd be much wiser knowing what I know about the situation to, play it safe, hedge your bets. I don't know if this is too small a facility for the anticipated turnout for this event. What do you think?
How many people lived last time? Like 100?
Yeah, last time we had a really good turnout at the community center, so I mean, it would be a very full
Right.
house here, if we held it here. So, but I don't know. Well, that was the other side of it. Do you want me to promote it specifically for Measure S, or are we covering any other topics?
I think it'd be great to promote it specifically for Measure S. Having said that, if we're in a situation where it seems that issue's exhausted for any questions or anything like that, I think that we ought to be open enough to, informally allow other questions and queries from the public.
It's almost
That's
like
just
the
my
State
thought.
of the Union.
Yeah.
State of the city.
State of the
meeting.
city. Mhm.
State of the city meeting, with that as the headliner.
Mm-hmm.
What's this building hold here, 50?
Yeah. Well, it's our maximum occupancy is 145.
You won't have over 145
That'll be
people.
standing room.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Seated comfortably, you got
Yeah.
50 or 60. The turnout that we had at the last meeting, I think, was larger than that, and I would not want them to be crammed in here, uncomfortable.
I think we still have it for the 13th and just let people figure out where to park and get in there. I mean, the crab feed was sold out, people figured it out, and, I mean, we're kind of running out of time, too. I mean, we don't have much time left, so I'd say we stay with the 13th.
Yeah,
Hold on a minute.
and the mail, the vote by mail ballots, get mailed out on February, it was either the 3rd or the 6th, I apologize.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do it any later than the 13th. And actually, what are the odds of the parking lot at least being gravelled by
Yeah,
then?
I think it's very safe to say at least which the west side now, with the south and the east side, I think will be brought up to where the west side is now with rock.
Right.
I think it will be drivable and walkable with certain measures that we can put in place. I'm with Tammy, I'm not confident that the pavement will be there, but I'm fairly confident that the soil will be brought back up to be able to drive in and park in the parking lot.
Yeah, well, I think that sounds fair enough. I mean, judging, you're right, I agree. If we're talking about a complete project, I don't know if I'd want to bet the farm on that stock. But close enough, knowing how things went Saturday night this last Saturday night, in a much more dire situation, with the state of the parking lot. Yeah, and I agree with Councilmember Merkin. Last thing you want to do is really try to have a small, teeny little facility to fit potentially bigger crowd. Better be safe than sorry.
So consensus is I'll move forward with the 13th and keep it as a
Yeah, that's
informational
consensus?
on Measure S.
Keep on the 15th? Keep on the 13th, keep at the community center,
And
right?
at 6:30.
And hope we don't have any major rainstorms.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, this weekend should be good.
And then, I'm sorry, in your agenda were the monthly staff communications for the treasurer's report, the police department, animal control, development services, building report, recreation department, public works, water department, wastewater, and our citizen advisory committee quarterly update. And we can answer any questions on those.
Any questions?
Did we get the water issue resolved for the folks that live back here? Did we find out what was causing that?
We have not got our samples, our results back yet, just because it's a little bit more detailed when we do an odor test, or at least the sampling, the lab that does it for us. We did go to all the sites. We went to 4 homes. There's me and 2 other gentlemen.
6 homes.
8
Well,
homes.
5, or, yeah.
4 on this side of town and
2
4 on the
locations.
north side on Genevieve
Yeah.
area and then on Swanson. We did our own sampling for bactine, chlorine, and at all sites, everything came back and normal. I personally tasted and smelled all, and at the time, we had no issues. Not to say that the people that came in that were expressing concerns weren't having those. At the time, they were not. I was able to speak with the live-in nanny on Swanson that had the issues, and she did confirm that there had been some issues at time. For everything that we see right now, everything's great. We've tested our system, which is well system. I know, I apologize I wasn't here at the last council meeting, but our system is actually a well system as well. One of the biggest reasons why our water tastes different than a farm's well is our regulations, and our compliance is just way more crazy than what it is. But with that being said, I will have a for sure answer here this next week when they come back, and I'll share that in the next council meeting. The good news is you usually hear something fairly quick when it's not good, and we haven't heard anything. It was good that we did that. Every year we do lead and copper testing, where we actually go to homes and come out of kitchen sinks. We'd be more than happy to add some of these residents on that list to do that for them yearly as well. I wasn't aware of the concern, how concerning it was, or I would have been on top of it in a heartbeat. But for right now, our system seems great. We're in compliance. There's no issues anywhere. We're not even a little bit out of line. I mean, everything's in perfect condition in the pipeline and in our wells.
Do they have a water softener in their house?
They answered questions, and I do not believe they had water softener. I'd have to check the questionnaire, but we did ask questions to every homeowner and had them sign something. It seemed like most people just had filters and refrigerators. But I can't honestly recall if they had a water softener, because of course that's always our first thought in situations like this, because 9 times out of 10 that's usually what it is.
I want to thank staff for getting on the situation and, and doing everything you guys have been able to do so far. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, any concern they have is definitely a concern for us.
Is there any update on, I'm sorry, you wanna keep going?
No, that's okay, go ahead.
Is there any update on the wastewater treatment plant and the industries?
I have scheduled to meet with the industries next week. So, I'm meeting with them next week.
We don't have to be there for that? That's not
No.
something?
No, I'm gonna meet with both of them, and, Tom, the operator, and Justin are gonna meet with me. And then, Andy's offered if I need him in the future, he would come and meet with them also. But this will be the first meeting to go over it, since we haven't really been able to talk yet, so.
So in that meeting, you'll go over like what Pace found and all
Yeah,
that stuff?
Yeah, and some anticipated changes in, crafts permit for this upcoming year, so that they're aware of it, and, see where they're at, in mindset in regards to the upgrades.
Thank you.
Just a quick note, we're having, YouTube is not streaming right now. The meeting is recording, so it will be uploaded later, but YouTube has changed it, the way that you have to upload it. And I tested this morning and it worked, and for whatever reason tonight, it doesn't seem to want to stream. So just FYI, it is recording. We will upload it later, but just a quick note to you guys. So,
Okay,
in case somebody says you weren't on there tonight, it's because we had issues, but we will upload it.
thank you.
I just had a small update. As a reminder to council, we did put out a request for proposals for the building inspection and plan checking services. So that's out, and those proposals are due by the end of the month, and then we'll review them and bring forward anything to council that needs to be approved. And we did receive some letters back from property owners in town from that mail out we did a few weeks ago. We received a total of 7 responses, 5 indicating no plans to develop their property, 4 of them either currently having it for sale or offering to sell it. We have 1 that said yes, planning to develop in 2020, 2021, and then we had 1 that said yes if the city is willing to reduce fees and permits. If you want any additional information, I do have it available.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Commercial?
The one that said yes on the fees is commercial. The one that said yes, planning to construct for 2021 is commercial. The ones that are not planning, there is 2 commercial and 3 residential. One of those residential being that area along Main Street that has about 4 lots for houses. Main Street, some people call it Santa Fe along the drag. Yeah, it
Near
sounds like,
Vine.
yeah, it sounds
Vine's
like for
local.
them specifically, they bought those houses thinking that they would just be able to build houses. And when the city advised, because you're in the city, when you build houses, you put in curb, gutter, sidewalk, all the
right.
infrastructure. They didn't realize we would make them do that from what they responded. And so that was way out of their budget for them. They weren't planning on doing any type of improvements other than constructing houses.
We're gonna continue to have perennial weed patches out there,
Yeah,
okay?
they're on our weed abatement
But
often.
at least we appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Good.
it was just out of, they didn't realize, I guess, maybe,
Fair
'cause
enough,
it's not always required when you're building outside of cities,
Mhm.
so,
fair enough.
It's
Okay.
better to know than guess.
yeah.
Any other updates?
Mr. Mayor, I just
Yes.
wanted to say, I put this packet on each of
Mhm.
your places there, and
I'm finding
It's
money,
ha-
no?
No money?
it's better, it's all kinds of really useful information, it's so interesting. But no, there are 6, I just wanted to say, there are 6 different flyers, all in different
Okay.
subjects that apply to cities. And I'm sure if you go through them, you'll learn at least one new thing that, so anyway, just
One more new little thing that, oops, we were doing it
There's
wrong.
even information on how to fill out your Form 700, so that's kind of timely.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I have one question.
gotcha. Yes, go ahead.
The senior advisor group, what did they advise us on, anything? Says on your, we have a senior advisor group.
The Citizens Advisory
Yeah,
Committee.
citizen, yeah, what did they advise us on, anything?
So that's, Gracie's report that's in here.
Any
It's right there on the
suggestions?
screen. No. It's just informational about, the meetings that she attend to, and mostly it looks like transportation items that were discussed.
Okay, just curious, thought maybe we'd learn something.
By the way, thank you for those reports too. Okay, sometimes we forget to tell you, but no, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Okay, are we ready to move on to matters presented from the audience?
Yes.
Okay, then, matters presented to the audience. At this time, the public may address the city council on any item not on the agenda, but it would need to be within the authority of the council. Speaker is limited to 5 minutes maximum. If we could keep it to that tonight, that'd be great. Sergeant Flores, if you wouldn't mind keeping a time if needed to be, and I know sometimes, actually usually, we might fudge it a little bit, but anyway, so, if you have anything to say, please, this is a great opportunity to bring it up.
Kurt Danziger, 389 Noni, just a information request. Have we opened up the pump station yet?
We actually did all the testing today with Tesco. The answer is no, but we're very close. We did all the testing today with SCADA. We did our generator testing today. Everything worked out great, so we're real close. I would think, I'm gonna tell you a month, so I'm safe. We're getting close.
Has the railroad waived their requirement?
I'm not sure. I will look into that.
I was just,
Gotta be kidding, yeah.
Okay, let's quickly move on to the next person. I think, no worries. I have a feeling we got an answer.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and staff. I'm not here to pick on Justin tonight. Sean Stroman, 2445 Yosemite. I'm actually here to give kudos to Justin. If you read your Public Works report, Public Works in December put up a speed bump on Yosemite. It works fantastic with one but, and that's why I'm here. We need two more, because we need one closer to Justin and one closer on the Nathaniel side, because what's happening now is as soon as people go over the speed bump there, they gun it to go to Campbell or they gun it to go down to Justin. In addition to that, we have, and I was going to bring this to your attention, we have some kids that come off of Campbell to go to high school and are driving on the sidewalk. And so we need to have that addressed ASAP. But if we have money in the budget, the residents of Yosemite would greatly appreciate 2 more speed bumps, because the one that is there is working out great. It's definitely slowing traffic down. Now, if we can just get them to stop gunning it, it would be wonderful. That's my first item, so thank you, Justin.
You're welcome. Thank you.
My other, 2 other items are, or actually, it's kind of a combo item. Some of you may have heard or seen on the billboard that I recently resurrected Cub Scouts in Escalon. So we had our first youth sign-up meeting last week. It's Cub Scout Pack 236. Our chartered organization is the American Legion, or 263, sorry. And my goal of doing that was to bridge the older generation with the newer generation. That's the mission of Cub Scouts. That's the mission of the scouting program. And it's about community. And so we had the perfect amount. We have 9 children, a couple girls. So now Cub Scouts actually allow girls into the program. So we have a couple girls involved in the program as well. But as this thing progresses, I'm going to contact staff and see if we can come before you and lead the Pledge of Allegiance and just get them involved in this side of the community. You'll probably see us at a Love Escalon event in April. Since we're partnered with the American Legion, we'll probably see each other at the parades, but I'm very hopeful. So for those of you that may know some children that want to be that are interested, I can be contacted, or either through the American Legion, or I'm also on the Planning Commission, so staff knows how to get in touch with me. But to kind of piggyback on that, I really want to give another big kudos and a big thank you to Tammy and to Bridget and to Jenny Thompson, because those 3 worked together with me to get the advertisement out, get it on the Lions sign, get it in the city newsletter, and that's what community is all about. And so thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Bridget. Marge isn't here to defend herself, but I would thank Marge if she would return my phone call. So, that's it. If you could strongly consider adding 2 more speed bumps along Yosemite, be greatly appreciated. Justin's guys were out there, they figured it out, and we need to do something to get those idiots off the sidewalk. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Hey, and thanks so much for restarting that Cub Scout chapter. Escalon's got to have a Cub Scout chapter, so that's great to hear that it's off and running again. Park Feed Parade, July 11th, by the way. Park Feed Parade, July 11th. Get them in there. And so I think we have a Girl Scout troop and a Boy Scout troop now in town again. That's exactly how it should be. Exactly how it should be. Anybody else like to come up and speak? Dave?
Just quickly, while we're praising Justin's good work.
Bring it, Dave.
Dave Lowe's, 425 Sultana Way. Thanks for trimming back the trees out there by the community center. They can see the signs now. Now, if you could just get them to slow down and pay attention to the flashing lights.
Justin, what was our expenditures on that, speed bump?
You
What'd it
know,
cost us?
overall with, material without labor, we're around 1,600. And it took three of the guys about 7 hours, but that was our first time. I really think we could knock 2 out in a day. They weren't really too bad to put in. I did a study myself. I kind of have to when we install when we have new traffic signs, traffic lighting, we have to observe it for a certain amount of time. And for the next following week, Cousin Eddie's what I like to call Sean, is exactly right. Everybody was slowing down, but then they would speed up. There could be a few more that could be at that road. I also think there's a few inlet streets that Chief and I have talked about that have no stop or yield that we need to somehow address to at least make people aware. But with the budget it's something I'm gonna be budgeting in the future. I think it was a success, and I definitely wanna look with your guys' blessing and into seeing if I can get a few more installed this year.
Yeah.
Are you painting them in a different color, effervescent, or?
No, these
fluorescent?
actually they're the black recycled rubber, but they have yellow stripping,
So
reflective
these are not
stripping in it.
asphalt, these are self-made, made already, and you bolt them to the road?
Correct.
Interesting. How wide are they?
This one here is actually a speed island, so this one is actually 3 foot wide, so it's not, you can't go bump, I mean, they're doing it, but it's meant to make them slow down a little bit more and for heavier equipment to trucks to be able to go over without messing up everything on it, so.
Why isn't it highlighted with a different color where people can notice it so they don't hit it?
For at night, well, I think it's probably more of a liability reasons at nighttime, it's reflective there. And really, it doesn't work very well, so I think it's just there because it has to be there. When you hit it, it's there.
I'm just wondering, if we're gonna end up with a bunch of complaints about front-end alignments and stuff like that.
Well, it's reflected, it's noticeable, and we're still
So
to this.
it is marked with reflective paint on there.
And still to this day, there's cones. I have to have orange, either flags or cones out for at least 45 days.
So everybody gets
So everybody can get
acclimated.
used to and acclimated to something there, and those are still in place, at least unless somebody's borrowed them again.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was great, so I'm glad that it's working out so far.
Councilman Alves, there is yellow tape on the signs that kind of go to the top of the island, but with all due respect, I think you as the city council, it's much better to handle complaints about a front-end alignment than children getting killed. And that's the whole purpose. That's why I came to Justin, because we have probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 8 families on Yosemite that, myself included, that as a parent, I wouldn't allow my son to play in the front yard because of the speedway effect, and that has dropped considerably. So if we can just get 2 more, we're in business.
Well, I was just curious, because anything can go wrong, will go wrong. I just like to know what's coming ahead of time. Can these be applied to Brennan?
They can be applied to any asphalt street. we
Legally,
have.
can we apply them to Brennan?
Yes, we can.
I don't know about that.
Oh, because of the trucks. the
And it's a
truck route.
collector street.
Yeah, no, I could be mistaken. Let me
Yeah,
get
we
that.
need to look at that
What
one.
I'll do is I'll go ahead and get a list of what streets
Because I know
can't.
for years we've had complaints on Brennan.
I'll just get a list of all streets that we can't do it in, so we
Yeah.
know, and then we'll go that way.
It'd be great if we can do one on Stanislaus going towards Miller too.
Yes.
I know that's a hot
We
spot.
could stay here for hours and tell you.
Well, every street's a hot spot, yeah.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just add one more thing. Justin mentioned my nickname as Cousin Eddie, and for those of you that don't know, Justin's new nickname is Clark. Okay, thank you.
Well, despite the fact that I really want to hear that story, I know we've got to continue on to the meeting, so we'll have to wait till afterwards for that. If there are no further objections, we'll move on to administrative matters, and let's do so. Administrative matters, item number 5, and I believe, Tammy, this is probably you.
Dominique.
Oh, Dominique, sorry.
Thank you. So this item at this time is introducing and waiving the first reading of ordinance number XXX, which would amend section 13.08.265 of the Escalon Municipal Code regarding maintenance of system responsibility for our sewer system. Over the last few months, members of the city council have requested that city staff prepare an amendment to the municipal code clarifying responsibility of the property owner for maintenance of sewer lines on the owner's property. Specifically, members of council expressed concern that property owners not be responsible for digging up roadways to make repairs in the event of a sewer line break. The council also directed city staff to add language clarifying the city's responsibility for maintenance of the sewer system and to add an arbitration process for property owners to contest the city's determination of maintenance responsibility. City staff has taken council's direction and amended the municipal code as requested by adding language addressing determinations of responsibility and an appeals process. Therefore, city staff recommends that the council introduce and waive the first reading of this ordinance, which amends section 13.08.265 of the municipal code, maintenance of the system responsibility. Attached to this item is the draft ordinance, and if you take a look, well, it is the ordinance within Exhibit A, and on Exhibit A, it's in red. We have the original language of the municipal code, which is in black, and then the language that was added is in red, which are items A and B. So it is A being request for determination of responsibility. Public Works will check the main sewer line for blockages upon request of the property owner. If a blockage is determined to be on the city's end, it shall be the city's responsibility to resolve it. If there is a cleanout on the property line, Public Works will conduct an inspection to determine if the blockage is in the lateral line between the cleanout and the main line. The owner will be notified if it is determined to be a private plumbing issue. If necessary, Public Works will assist with private plumbing repairs by trenching the roadway asphalt and restoring the roadway once the private plumbing repairs are completed. Letter B, resolution and appeals. If an owner disagrees with an action or determination made by the city pursuant to subsection A, the owner may, within 5 calendar days of receiving notice of such action or determination, file a written appeal. Any such appeal shall be filed with the city manager, accompanied by payment of fees as set forth in the city's fee schedule. In the event the appeal is resolved in favor of the owner shall be refunded the fee for such appeal.
Are there any opening questions?
So let's make this simple. So basically, if anything before your sidewalk back towards your house is your responsibility, anything beyond is the city's, provided they didn't create the problem?
As far as the sewer line, their homeowners are still responsible from the main to their home. With that being said, if they have to go into the home, we're not gonna have them get an
Into the road,
Or,
yeah.
excuse me, to the road, we're not gonna have them get an encroachment, dig the road up and put it back. We ourselves will go out and dig the road up, mark where the sewer line's coming into the main. We will take the asphalt out. When their plumber repairs the line, puts the soil back, we'll come back and pave the, roadway.
So, if that line is defective because of installation, whose responsibility is it then?
I guess if installation of the sewer line into the main,
Yeah.
it would be on the homeowners.
No, through development, so in the very beginning, when these properties are built, the installation of those sewer lines and stuff, if it's defective at that point and becomes apparent later, the onus is on who to repair it?
Well, I guess it'd be hard to find out if that would be the case. I mean, I think that would have to be determined beforehand, once a contractor does that. I think it'd be hard to determine if it was after the fact, because right now, the way it is, no matter what, from the main back is responsibility of the homeowner.
I understand that. I'm still understand this. If it's a defective line, though, say They installed it and the connection was weak at one point
Okay,
and it slipped and created a stoppage. What happens then?
then the homeowner would need to get that repaired, cause that,
But the defect was caused by installation, why would the homeowner pay for that?
Well, okay, so if they knew who did it, you know, and then they could sue the contractor.
But that when they bought the house, they bought that liability.
It just doesn't seem equitable.
What's the statute of limitation, I mean, how long typically
Well-
does a line like that last? What's the lifespan of a line like that?
like a sewer line now, it should
Yeah.
stay, in the back in the day when they were cast iron in Orangeburg, I mean, you're 10 to 50 years depending on the line, but a line now is gonna last you 80 to 100 years if it's taken care of.
Well, it's ABS, so it shouldn't, it's not gonna rot. The only problem you might run into is if it was connected improperly and there's a weak
Exactly.
connection. And over the years, it may get looser and looser, and that was my point.
Mhm.
That's the thing I'm concerned about. I mean, I don't have a problem.
But as far as the city's concerned, if a main goes in and the sewer line lateral gets installed correctly, I mean,
Well, there's
from-
the end of the conversation.
and that, but understandably, but that should be noticed at the time, that should be noticed on inspections of the main lines. I mean, that should be on the
Wouldn't
responsibility,
it be nice?
you know? And I know that wasn't how it was always in the past, but I do feel like in the last 10 years, it has been much better here in that
Well,
way.
Things do happen, is my point. And I just want to be
Definitely.
clear on the fact that if it's a malfunction created by a bad installation, I want a more of a defined response. I don't want the, this is fine, but if that thing was installed improperly and gradually created the problem, I don't think the owner should be on the homeowner. I think the owner should be on the city because they didn't catch it through the inspection process.
If it wasn't caught through the inspection process, sure.
If it was caught, they wouldn't have had a problem. So if it wasn't caught and did occur, then my question is, whose liability is it?
Be reasonable, the question would be, what's a reasonable amount of time? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? In other words, if, let's say it's a 20-year-old line, and if it goes defective for whatever
No, that's
reason.
way too long. I mean,
Well, I don't know, I mean, is
yeah,
that where
I mean,
you're,
you put in a sewer line, honestly, within a year. I mean, if anything's defected without any tree root issue, or any separation, I mean, you're gonna notice that during testing within the first month, because your paper products is not gonna flow through the line. You're gonna be able to know that lane. Now, if something separates 2 or 3 years later, that doesn't necessarily mean the connection was bad. That's because something else could have happened in the area. It could have been a varmint inside that created a hole underneath it, done something. We've seen that on Orangeburg. So in order to say that it's the city's responsibility for years on out or for so many long is just masking.
I'm wondering if another area of where you could fall possibly under city responsibility is if, and I don't know if we do this in this town, some towns do, the insistence on street trees and things like that the city insists that the homeowner has to have,
That's
and
a
therefore
different
that tree
situation.
rips it up.
Right, that's different.
Well, yeah, because that could be, that's the city's, if that rips up the line.
But a
So,
while back, we had water line problems. Remember all the water lines we had to replace?
Yeah.
How come the homeowner didn't replace those?
Well, because the contractor put in bad piping and that was came down to let all the
So I
contractors
think that's my point.
know.
That's
Sure.
my point. My point is if there's some sort of a malfunction through installation or defective materials, the onus is no longer on the homeowner. That's what I'm trying to get across to you.
Sure.
Okay. So, how is that reflected in this, is my point.
Well, it does not reflect in that, and I would ask your opinion on how we could make that be reflective in here.
Well, I think that that would be, when we go out there and we make a determination whether it's in our main or in the lateral, then if we say that it's the homeowner's issue and the plumber comes back and says this is a defect, then that's when they would come to you guys for an appeal, and you guys would have that
Well, there you
authority
go. So
to
that's
say
covered in the
who.
Because
appeal
there is a
process.
process where we can rent the type of camera equipment, we can put a camera down there, turn the head up and
I know,
zoom
I've
in
seen
to
them.
see at least how it's connected to see if the issue's there.
But we don't have that
We have an
equipment.
appeal here basically that addresses those issues, is what you're
Right.
saying. It's happened a couple times.
It's happened enough where people have complained that why is it our responsibility to tear up the road to go out to the main on a line that we didn't have anything to do with the installation of? So, I think this is a good step, where it does give some balance to say, hey, it's our fault or our problem to deal with. I think having the appeal process in there is important, and I don't think that the city just would randomly go out and say, hey, it's your fault, so therefore you're required to fix it. If it's a city problem, we're more than happy to take on that responsibility. I think the way it was written before, we just didn't have that flexibility. It's basically you bought the house and you bought all the damage and everything that came along with it on that lateral out to the main. And, you know, we're gonna have them hiring people to come out and tear up the roadway and then patch it when they're done and stuff, and we'd have so little control over that, so.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
currently, we go through basically a lot of this process that's being lined out on here. The exception would be the extracting the roadway for the homeowner. But we would currently require that they have an encroachment permit, and then they would be inspected, which ensures the roadway's getting put back in their proper way. So, but I mean, really, this,
Right.
we're outlining a lot of what we already do. We already work with customers.
We had the same situation today on Winterbrook. We had a customer call in saying they had sewer plug. The plumber came out and said, it's not us, it's the city. I went out, sure enough, their clean out had water flowing out of it. And I did our part on the main. We went and checked it. We had no issues in the main. I went to neighbors clean out, popped their clean outs, and they didn't have any issues. They were still concerned. I went ahead and got our sewer trailer and ran our line just for good measure. And then the plumber was convinced, okay, I'll come do something. Now, came out within an hour, their line was unplugged. So I've never not tried to go beyond, you know, without helping the residents to figure out what the issue is. And we'd be more than happy to put the road and take the road out if they have to dig up the road. Because the same thing, it's really not the city's fault that something happened either, and it's not their fault. So how can we work together to help the situation?
Well, I think this is largely a cooperative, I mean, these two provisions here, you know, suggest a really largely cooperative effort, I think, between the city, you know, and the individual. You know, you try to make sure that if there's anything that the city needs to do on its end, you're doing it, you know, and so, and this also largely fits what we had discussed several meetings ago when we sent this to staff. You know, to have a arbitration process like that, just in case there is an issue where
But we're
a
also
disagreement.
maintaining the consistency now that you're digging up the road. We're
Correct.
gonna get it
That's a
done
big
right.
thing.
You're gonna do the compaction, which is correct, 95.5, and you don't have to worry about somebody goofing it up.
Exactly.
And those are critical things about those roads.
Yeah.
And the patching. I mean, if you guys are pretty much in tune with how to do all that stuff, so it makes more
Yeah,
sense.
we would prefer to do it, yeah.
I would prefer you do it.
I had a question on section B, where it says, any such appeal shall be filed with the city manager accompanied by payment of fees as set forth in the city fee schedule. How much is it, the fee to appeal?
That's a good question.
Currently, I want to say it's, I'm not sure, it used to be 500
Yeah.
$500 to,
to appeal, yeah.
I think that's
And this is,
a little bit high.
I mean, and that was a fee that was set by council, you know, and typically, that's because of,
Is that any appeal, like that, like a planning commission thing, or when we had that?
No,
I don't
because
think
there's
so.
different appeals
we have
for
different
each
types of appeals,
board.
yeah.
I don't know what
So it's around that amount,
So $500, I think, I mean, it could be kind of prohibitive for somebody to even, you know, bring an appeal. That's a lot of money. I think, I just was curious. I didn't know if it was
Don't
like,
set a rate to it, then you'd have everybody appeal, and then if it turns out, like, we have it set up for administrative citations, if they want to appeal a citation, we have an appeals hearing set up for, like, nuisance abatement, those type of things. And the idea for the reason that the fee is set is not only so that not everybody that has an issue files an appeal, because it puts the staff into a process. We have to do research, put together reports, get things prepared to come to council. It costs time and money to be able to do that, but at the same time, in what I've seen with the ones that I've dealt with in the past, the people that have appealed, there's no doubt that they were in violation of the municipal code, and those were separate items, and so you put us through that process, and that one, you know, at least it covers the process to be able to let them have their day, but in both cases that I've dealt with recently, they were violating code. In this case, if they were to be proved at council level that they were, had an issue and it was our issue, we would give the money back to them. So that at least they know they're taking that risk. And at that time, if the council wants to, I mean, we could change that, we can set up a separate fee for it, it just depends on
I was just curious
what you
what the
wanna
fee was,
do.
so,
Yeah,
thanks.
$626.
$626.
Oh, it went up, okay.
It has
That wasn't
gone
one of the ones we lowered, okay. So, and another thing I'm wondering is if that, what we would need to do if we'd wanted to actually codify that fee in section B, if we could, approve this with that as an amendment.
Well, I think that's why we put it in there, because those
Yeah.
fees are adjusted.
Right.
Because
Okay.
if you
okay.
put the actual fee in there, then you would have to adjust that ordinance every time.
Right. Never mind,
So
never
that's
mind.
why it's referenced
Okay.
as set by.
I'd like to see what I'm curious, what are all these appeal fees? I'm just curious what they would all be. Maybe next meeting, we could just run down really quick, or I could find out, tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, they're on our website,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah.
And I think we review them every 3 years, 2 years?
Those fees, we just recently did a couple
Yeah,
of years ago.
couple years ago,
And
yeah.
they have an automatic inflator in them, so we
Okay.
don't necessarily, we don't have a time period. In the past, you are correct, about every 2 years I reevaluated them.
Okay, okay.
But I think 3 years is probably more reasonable at this point.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience? And by the way, council members, this is an actionable item tonight, so think about what you'd want to do in the way of a motion.
I forgot to thank Justin and his crew for replacing all the signs on Farinelli. That was done. My neighbor, who's a firefighter from San Francisco, saw that they were kind of fading away, and your crew got right on it. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I forgot to say that to you. Having said that, one of my neighbors, well, I don't know, he'd been in his house for 10 or 12 years on the corner of, I guess it's Riesling and Noni, has a higher elevation. And when they put in his sewer line, it kind of went at a steeper angle and leveled out to the street. The tree, the city tree that he's required to maintain, moved the pipe, I think you remember this maybe, and it created a little sinkhole in his front yard.
I
So
remember that too.
yeah, and you've replaced the tree. So just for color, just to show you that those things exist. And I believe he ate it all. He had to pay for the whole thing. I don't believe there was any street torn up, though.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, so, again, just a little color. Just in the verbiage on A, it says, if necessary, Public Works will assist with private plumbing repairs and by trenching the roadway asphalt and restoring the roadway once the private plumbing repairs are completed. Is the city responsible for that cost?
Of the road,
Yeah.
yes.
So if the blockage is on the private property, but it requires trenching into the street, the city's just gonna do that?
Why,
and-
Kurt, why would it
That shouldn't be.
require,
I don't know, I'm just looking at the verbiage here.
Okay.
My question is like yours. Again, just reading, if it requires trenching, and it says if the property is where the blockage is,
you're suggesting possibly you're referring that we'd be responsible for digging up the property owner's property?
well, no, so you got a block, I don't know what the situation would be where
If you
you'd
have
be.
a stoppage on the property owner's property, it wouldn't affect the street.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, so I don't know why that last sentence is in there.
I
It's,
think they mean to say if there was a problem out in the street that the owner was responsible for, they would assist by digging up the road and repairing it. Isn't
well,
that
if there is a clean out on the property line, Public Works will conduct an inspection to determine if the blockage is in the lateral line between the clean out and the main line. The owner will be notified if it is determined to be a private plumbing issue. If necessary, Public Works will assist with private plumbing repairs by trenching the roadway asphalt and restoring roadway once the private plumbing repairs are completed. So I'm kind of confused.
So the lateral between the sidewalk and the main, if there's an issue in that, it's still the homeowner's responsibility, but we would trench open the road.
Well, I thought you were saying you didn't want the homeowner to be responsible for that.
Well, he still is responsible for that. What we're not responsible for is digging up the road and paving, which is the biggest hunk of it anyway, and the most possibility of not being done correctly. And that's been my gripe for years, because the patches are horrible. The city knows how to repair the roads, and they're the ones who should repair them. Plus, they know how to do the compaction test which has to be done properly.
And no argument there, it just seemed a little confusing to me when I was reading this about, you know, it looked like the city was gonna help them repair it, even though it's on their property, and then we.
We're just gonna give them access to the lateral that's under the road.
Okay, that was my.
Yeah.
Cheaper too.
So council, I'm gonna put on my construction manager hat for a second, and the Uniform Construction Code implies a 1-year standard warranty for all public works jobs.
Okay.
So my recommendation, Councilman Alves, is if a longer period is requested when developers come to the city to apply for a permit, maybe incorporate that into their form of contract, saying, no, on utilities, we want a 5-year warranty. That way, the burden is put back on the contractor, not on Public Works.
Why don't we word it this way? Why don't we word it, if there's a malfunction through installation, there is no time limit on it?
Because you don't want that responsibility. I did
I'm
it,
talking about us, I'm referring to the contractor. So in other words, when a contractor comes to do a development in our community,
right?
and they install something and it is not done properly, there is no time limit on their responsibility, is what I'm suggesting.
Because then you're in violation of the Uniform Construction Code. Now you're fighting the contracting code. Plus, there may be another issue with the public contract code. Your attorney could answer that better, but I see.
If your negligence has any time limit on it, if you prove negligence. I don't know, I'd have to look into it. I don't know for a fact, and I don't know how it applies to the UBC, I don't know.
Well, I see, I mean, I think this ordinance really is a win-win, because if it's found that it's the homeowner's responsibility, the homeowner needs to pick it up. I mean, I do construction projects all over the place, and as Justin said, with with kind of cleaning this up, so to speak, you're gonna know within a couple months if stuff starts backing up, if the pipe was installed defectively. I mean, right away. I did a project in the state of Indiana where we were tying in new sewer lines into brick and mortar sewer lines that were built in 1850, and there was nothing wrong with them. So, I mean, a sewer line, if it's below grade and is properly maintained, can last 150 years if it needs to. So I wouldn't put that burden on the city. I
don't think we're putting the burden on the city, I think we've agreed to what he's got here.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, are there any further questions? Again, this is an actionable item.
I got just a minor question. Fine to dig up the road, but what if the problem's under the sidewalk?
Same thing.
Might wanna include sidewalks in your,
Sidewalks aren't normally a problem. Digging dirt underneath the sidewalk's one thing, taking up pavement, repaving and compacting is a whole different ballgame.
yeah, but still, you got people walking on the sidewalk.
Well, I would honestly, Dave, try to save sidewalk and trench between the grass and the roadway and leave that if possible.
Well, if it
But
can't
definitely
be
I'll
done-
work with homeowner in that situation. If we ever do, we'll, make sure that the sidewalk's walkable as far as plywood or a trench plate.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, are there any other final comments before I ask for a motion?
I move on staff's recommendation.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to move on staff's recommendation to waive the first reading of this ordinance, amending section 13.08.265 of the Escalon Municipal Code, maintenance of system responsibility. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item number 6, consideration of approving mid-year revisions to the fiscal year 2019-2020 city budget.
And that is me.
Okay.
So on June 10th of 2019, the council adopted the city's budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, which projected an operating deficit of $163,000 for the general fund. As we have done for the last 9 years, staff has conducted a mid-year budget review for council consideration. The mid-year budget review involved utilizing actual expenditures and revenue history for the first 6 months for the fiscal year, and projecting that history over the remainder of the fiscal year, incorporating revenue trends, specifically retail sales tax, investment earnings, property tax, and development fees, updating capital improvement programs, conducting a department-by-department review of expenditures, incorporating any appropriations that have been made since the adopted budget, and adding any carryover budget items from fiscal year 2018-19. Staff completed an in-depth review of the city's revenues. There were only minor adjustments to revenues. More significant ones were the increase to investment earnings, which $15,000. I did increase the police state grants for the emergency operation plan, which has an offsetting expenditure. Adjustments to the enterprise funds were made based on the current revenue trends also. The overall change to the budget reflects an increase to the general fund total revenue of $76,000. Special government funds reflect a slight increase or decrease of $10,000. Enterprise funds increased $19,000 for a citywide increase of $85,540. Staff conducted a department-by-department review of expenditures. In employee services, there was a citywide decrease for workers' compensation due to a retroactive adjustment with a credit of $70,000. Police overtime expenditures were adjusted to reflect an increase due to changes in staffing and coverage for training. It increased $15,000. Salaries citywide have decreased $53,000, almost $54,000. Increase to the police department budget was made for the emergency operation plan, which is the offsetting of that grant revenue I mentioned. Small increases were made in multiple departments. The overall change to the budget reflects an increase to the general fund total operating expenditures of $15,400 and a citywide increase of $21,900. Staff did review the capital improvement program and made updates. We did reduce the senior room wall repair. We were nowhere near the $30,000. I think we were a couple $1,000s. We had this mid-year does include the increased cost for the community parking center, which was part of the additional appropriation when it was awarded. Staff is asking for an additional $45,000 based on work needed to the ground due to moisture. Increased the cost for Jordan Nolo reconstruct and service alignment, which was based on the bids, and the additional appropriation was awarded with the contract. We added in the rectangular rapid flashing beacon crosswalks, which were a carryover from the prior year. And the carryover budget for the McHenry lift station was added, and the additional appropriation for the fencing improvements and overflow parking lot for Hogan Ennis. With the adjustments to both revenues and expenditures, staff is now projecting a deficit of $122,000 for fiscal year 2019-20. This is a positive difference from the adopted budget of $41,000. Staff has taken the audit for the fiscal year 2018 and adjusted beginning fund balances. The general fund beginning balance was originally projected to be $3.1 million. Using actual numbers from the audit, it's been revised to $3.7 million. And we revised the beginning balance and the adjustments to the budget. Staff is now projecting an ending fund balance of $3.4 million, which is an increase of $600,000. Staff has also added the additional $150,000 to equipment reserves and to CalPERS unfunded liability, as approved when the council accepted the fiscal year 2018-19 audit. The new projected ending balances for June 30, 2020 include an operating budget reserve of $2.1 million, which is 47.5% of the operating budget, $268,000 for equipment reserve, $706,000 in debt service, and $350,000 for CalPERS unfunded liability. Enterprise funds did have minor adjustments, with fund balances updated from the fiscal year 2018-19 audit. Attached to the staff report, you'll find the updated information for general fund summary, fund analysis summaries, revenues, expenditure summary, capital outlay, and capital improvement sheets. Therefore, staff recommends that the council approve the mid-year revisions for fiscal year 2019-20 city budget as identified in the staff report and attached documents.
Okay, opening questions and/or comments. Council.
You mentioned that we reduced our overhead with employees. How did we do that?
It's primarily the workers' compensation.
Because we've had no claims, is why?
Yeah, because of a retro adjustment, there was a credit that we got this year, so.
We're sharing liability with other cities too, right?
We share a pool of funding, we don't necessarily share in their liability.
So their liability doesn't affect ours?
Correct,
Oh, good.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any questions, queries? Yes. Kirk.
Yeah, I don't pretend for a minute that I understand any of this, but curious, under water revenue budget, the Tracy sale, looks like it's listed there for fiscal year 17-18, 18-19, and then the actual, but it doesn't have anything listed for 19-20. Is that just because it hasn't been adopted yet?
Where are you referencing?
This would be under, I don't know.
In the revenues?
Yeah, it doesn't have a page number, Tammy.
So it actually moved. It's going down into the capital fund. So if you look in the next section right below it,
Yeah,
where it's the water capital fund,
I see.
going down.
Okay. Thank you.
No, keep going. Keep going. Wait.
Does that make any difference at all? And it shouldn't, by the way. The answer is it shouldn't. But does it make it, how does that affect the intention of those monies, Tammy?
Pull up some more. It doesn't affect the intentions of the monies at all.
Okay.
It's just moving it out of the operating fund
Okay.
into the capital fund, because the capital fund is where the connection to SSJID would come from.
Okay, all right.
So that money's still reserved
Correct.
for the
Yeah.
pipeline?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
And it's just not commingled with the operating funds.
okay. Questions?
Will that line item eventually move under the capital improvement, so it reflects the true total in there?
So what you're looking at on the screen is only the projected revenues, it's not a fund balance. So if we go to the summary page, the fund analysis,
So that's just showing what's going on for this fiscal year?
Right, just this year.
that's just what the projected revenues are. It doesn't, it's not what the fund balance or reserve balances are. So here you will see the surface water connection. So at the end of this year is projected to have the 628,194.
So where it's listed above, not in the capital improvement, but in the operating budget, that amount, that's not a fund balance sitting there?
No, no, that was just projected revenues, it's not fund balances.
Yeah, its own line item is there, as its own line item at this point. I imagine I'll probably continue at that point in future reports.
Yes, so this is, the page that you're looking at is a fund balance, which shows the fund balances. The other are particular line items of revenue.
So we're, on this page where it's got water operating, and then capital projects, and then it's got the surface water connect. So the surface water connect pulls both of those numbers out and combines them in this line item. So that's not partially showing in that operating fund balance and partially showing in the capital projects.
No, it's actually, so all the funding has been moved, nothing is in the operating. it's technically all in the capital, but in the capital is designated for the surface water connection.
All right.
Well, what's nice about that, I know, can't tell you how many times we would make, well, I think it's like 500, 400 things. We're all trying to guesstimate up here.
Right.
And now we know, at least as there's one home that we can easily find out how much is actually in there. Boom, take a look at that. So this is a motionable item. Are there any further questions? Okay. Council members, I will need a motion therefore.
Move on staff's recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded to move on staff's recommendation and the council approve the mid-year revisions to the fiscal year 2019-2020 city budget as identified in the staff report and attached documents. Is there any discussion on the motion on the table? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes 5-0. Council.
And I'm
yes.
sorry, just one clarification. This does mean that we will still move forward with our second position of the police officer. That was included in that. Since it's below what we originally had projected, I'm just reconfirming that we will move forward with that.
Very good, very good. Council communications, Councilmember Chronic.
Thank you, Mayor Swift. Going back to that, actually, that line item, I was always curious, that 104,000 that we sell the water to Tracy, does that ever escalate, or do we charge more for that, or how long has it been 104,000?
Pretty much since inception, and
Which is since when?
2000,
2 or 3 or something like that.
yeah, I wanted to say 4, but right.
It's a
right in
flat-
that.
Probably 4 something.
A flat.
So the rate was predetermined, it's based on if SSJID changes their rate. So,
We can't charge them more?
no, not in our agreement. We would have to renegotiate our agreement if we wanted to charge them more.
Okay.
Just to follow up on that, if I could.
Yeah.
If it's on topic. So the comment was made, I think, at a meeting, a prior meeting, about that money being set aside. And had it been set aside, that fund would be significantly higher at this point. But my recollection is that 104,000 was part of the payment that the city was making back to SSJID for our portion of the buying into the treatment plant.
Yeah, almost. So it was we actually had a debt service, a bond measure, or a bond that we were paying on for our buy-in to the SSJID, and it was used the first few years for that purpose, yes.
And then at some point, there were, I believe it was 2 years where that money was used to subsidize the operating costs.
That sounds about right.
So there's really,
So
we're
it
missing-
was right in around the range, I want to say 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay, so we're maybe $300,000 below where we could have been had we just immediately started setting that money aside. So it's not 10 years worth of money that was diverted. It was 2 or 3 years that were used to subsidize the operating cost of the water system because of the recession and everything else that was going on.
Yes.
So technically, we should have about $300,000 more in there
More.
than what's in there. Okay, all right, thanks, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I had one last comment about, going back about what Dominique said about the surveys, about what people want to do and how people did mention the fees. I sent an email just asking Tammy about how do we address those, and she said we would need council consensus to look at those fees again. And I know I've been talking about it, ever since I got up here, and I'll probably be talking about it until I go. And I really think, though, I personally know some parties right now that want to invest in the town commercially, and the fees are, it's just a big kind of stop sign, it slows things down. And if there's a way that we could, like, I know we've talked about incentive packages or reducing those fees, but is there a way we could look at those again, or are you guys interested in that? I'm just trying to get a feel here.
One thing I might suggest is if you get a chance, talk to Tammy about those.
Uh-huh.
Because I know that it's part of a whole, process. Not that it's not doable, because it is. It's definitely doable.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that was the result of a study, and typically that's what you do to analyze, okay, how
Yeah.
much does it cost in the city to do these certain, all these different items, and you're taking into account labor and everything else in sight, and that's how you end up with your number. So, versus, throwing a dart, okay, here's where we want the fees to be. There is some math, there is some science into it, but that's probably the first thing I would suggest, is maybe just,
Yeah, and I know that there's a process,
Yeah.
and I know that there's a lengthy process to go through to address it, but I think that there's a wrong philosophy that I think I've heard a few times about, well, let's check other cities, what do they charge? And I don't think that's the right attitude, really. I think that it should be how do we want to stimulate commercial development? How do we want to bring more amenities through private investment to the community? And how do we help those along rather than just be another hurdle? And so that's my thing, is I don't think we should compare ourselves to other cities. We should look at how do we do this? And it's possible. I mean, it's really up to this body to say how aggressive we want to be at bringing other businesses to town. And so I just wanted to make that point. And I'd like to continue to look at the fees and finding ways to lower the developer fees.
appreciate it, Councilmember Crumick. Councilmember Legero.
Thank you, Mayor Swift. To follow up on the fee issue, I know that we reduced fees after going back over, we reduced some of the commercial fees at one point here in the not too distant past. So that it is good to go back and revisit those fees. I think we also have the option, if there is a commercial business that's beneficial to the community, we do have some options about working with them to either reduce or pay those fees over a payment plan or a longer period of time. So we need that flexibility, because there are some commercial projects that would be great to bring into town, and we would be more than happy to work with them. They just gotta come to the city and see what we can do. And I also like the idea of looking at these fees and maybe breaking some of them out to be more specific line items, because as we come across these ordinances, it'll, refer to the fee schedule. Well, maybe we do need to have a line item for appeal fee for, the sewer line issue, just so it's very clear and it's easy to find. And then we also can look specifically at the cost for that particular appeal versus some other appeals. So it's not just a generic fee. So there's some rationale that's based on some real numbers. So I agree with Peter on that. I think that's a good approach with these fees. I got a request for a speed bump at California, just east of Elizabeth. Same neighborhood, same area there, wide street, lots of traffic flowing through there. Galloway's house was right there on the corner and down a little bit. So that's another area to take a look at if you could. That's a pretty fast roadway as well. It's wide and very racy. So I think knowing that you have the ability to do that, I think we're gonna get a lot more requests for it, but, hey, if it makes the neighborhood safer and slows people down, great, and then we'll just get them off the sidewalks and we'll go from there. So, what else? We were out at the Escalon PD range for some training. There's definitely some upgrades that we can do out there, so we're looking for a wish list to maybe consider, see where the monies are, see what we can do about putting out some shade cover out there, some benches, some new targeting systems and stuff. So.
Yes, sir. It gets pretty hot out there in the summer, so a little shade would help.
Yep. Pop-ups work okay, but some more permanent stuff, and that's something that I certainly think would be a great project for some of the service groups around town here to maybe take a look at putting stuff up out there and really giving back to the officers. It's a basic facility that gets the job done, but certainly there are some upgrades that can be done out there that'll certainly make it more user-friendly and
Most definitely.
better for you guys. So, but we would like to see the wish list too, and then we can put a cost to it. So, other than that, I think we probably do need a Clark W. Griswold appreciation certificate. I think that's awesome. So that is one of the best parts about this city, is when you look at the ordinance and you look at what we're trying to put in the ordinance, we're codifying what is actually happening out there. You know, you've got good city staff that are trying to work with the community and trying to say, okay, hey, this one's on us, and we're gonna do what we can to help you, or this one's on you, we're gonna do what we can to help keep the costs down and reduce your costs to make sure that we get this fixed right. So, you know, that to me is the way this should be working. So, with Justin, I've never heard a complaint. I have never heard anybody have any issues with how you handle the public, handle the community. You got people constantly coming in here and praising Public Works and what they're doing out there. So you're hitting it just right. So continue to doing what you're doing, and we'll try to remember not to call you Clark, but I think you are a great representative for the community, and just I really appreciate the work you guys, all of Public Works is doing. So
Hey, I appreciate that, but it definitely needs to go credit to the whole crew down there. I got a very fantastic crew.
you set the tone.
Thank you.
So I think that's really important. So, yeah, and you're out, you have contact with the community when they're not necessarily at their finest. So, you know, same thing goes with the police department too. We just don't get complaints about you guys. You know, you guys go out and do your job, and, you know, people can grumble about getting a ticket or whatever, but they can't come back and talk about, you know, the officer being rude or unprofessional or anything like that. So I think, you know, it works its way through the entire staff, you know, and the city manager sets a tone here, and that trickles down to make sure that everyone is having that kind of positive the interaction as you can have with the community. So just keep up the good work, and we really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, just to add to that, sir, funny you say that, because the other day we had an incident where this young lady was walking on the highway, and we turned around to stop her, and she's carrying a 1-gallon container for gas, because she ran out of gas. She broke down on the highway, so we stopped to help her, and she's like, well, you guys saved me. And I said, well, we'll take you to the gas station and take you back to your car. But before you get in our car, we want to make sure you don't have any weapons, guns, bazookas, anything's going to hurt us, right? And she's like, oh, yeah, sure, definitely. So I grabbed her jacket to make sure there was nothing in her pocket, and there was something in there, and that turned into an arrest, and turned into, do you have drugs on you? I have drugs on me. Okay, well, you know, we'll take care of that. So we took her back to the station, treated her really well, and she was really shocked. She said, you guys are different here. I said, well, when we're done here, we're still gonna do what we promised. I said, I'll take you back to the gas station, we'll get you your gas, take you back to your car, and then you can go on your way. And we did that. We took her back to her, I personally took her back to her car. She pumped her gas in her car, and then she took off. But she thanked me.
See, there you go.
She said she made a mistake, but, you know.
Full service right there.
She did say, well, we're different. I said, well, we know you made a mistake, but we're still gonna treat you with dignity and respect, and
Yeah.
we're not gonna treat you wrong, so.
That's it. There's a lot of agencies will not do that, would never think to do that,
No.
you know?
No.
And that's the kind of service, good or bad, you
Yeah.
know, according to the person receiving that service, you know, that's how you do it. So, and that seems to be the consensus, how you guys handle yourself, and that's, you know, we could ask for nothing more than that. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Legero. Councilmember Merkin.
Just to go along with that, I have guess he's a distant cousin, just completed the Sacramento Police Academy, was working for the Sheriff's Department, Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. He was dismissed from his field training officer program because he was too nice to the public.
Wow.
So that tells you the philosophy difference between Escalon and Sacramento County. The only other thing I have is I've been doing some reading and keeping track of an item that's going to be on the November ballot, I believe, this year, and it is effectively the repeal of Proposition 13. Our government, our Sacramento government up here is not going to tell you that they're going to repeal Proposition 13. This is going to be on the ballot as the Education and Local Government Funding Plan. But what it is they're going to eventually come after your property taxes. From what I can read so far, this is for commercial and industrial properties only, which is going to make it harder for businesses to actually operate, gonna make it more costly, which will pass the cost on to us. But there's absolutely no reason to believe that they eventually will not come after your property taxes. So education and local government funding plan, so remember that, Prop 13.
Councilmember Merkin, thank you very much for that, that warning, that, Mayor Pro Tem Alves.
Just a couple of things. Last time we were here, we talked about some signs missing over off of Oklahoma and, what the heck road was that? Oklahoma and whatever parallels into it before the park there.
Oklahoma and.
Rosina?
What's that road?
No.
Rosina?
What's it called?
Rosina?
No.
No.
It goes from east to west and then.
Fisk?
What is it?
Fisk?
No.
It's gonna be
California
Park.
Park.
Oh, Park.
Park
Oh,
Avenue.
The
Park.
sign was stolen. Did we replace it?
The sign on Park?
Park in Oklahoma on the corner.
Oh, I think we did. I'll check into it tomorrow, though, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we
What about
talked to
the
Jake
blockade
about it.
over- There's a blockade that's kind of fell apart there on the border of town there, off Yosemite. Did we get a look at that?
Yeah, we have a list of about 8 or 9 of them. You're talking about the dead-end barricades?
Yeah. You're gonna get a list of streets telling us which ones are,
That we cannot put those on?
cannot please. As far as city fees go and bringing new business to town, that's a slippery slope. The problem with the lowering the fees is that we're gonna pick up the difference. If you're gonna bring a new business to town and they can show you, I think, in my personal way of thinking, they can show you the benefits outweigh the reduction of fees, I'm all for it. But if not, then I don't see any point in doing it. But I'm pro-business, but not at the cost of the taxpayer. In the crime report, I noticed there's a rash of thefts. Are we going through some kind of a New Year's deal or what?
Yeah, it just happens, you know, it takes, they just rotate, they go from one city to another city. Ripon was hit pretty hard, and then they
What's
just
the
filter.
MO? What are the hours normally?
They're at night, majority of the time.
Are they going onto properties at night?
No, they're just, basically, they go and find, vehicles that are unlocked,
Okay.
things like that.
Any
We had a
crime?
smash the other day over at Brennan and 120, but the vehicle's out there at the end of town and Third is, you know, very dark over there, but they usually do it at night.
I noticed over off of First Street in Carrigan, there was 2 thefts right there.
Mm-hmm.
Those are package thefts.
Oh, that's
So holidays when the
Holidays,
deliveries,
the
yeah.
packages.
lives. Suckers on Sanchez Park on the trees. Can we get some of those trimmed up, please?
Sure.
Those beautiful trees, they're just, you know, getting a little disoriented there. It looks like somebody didn't comb their hair. The last thing, I got this call from somebody about an email that went out from the city regarding a fee for expediting a water bill or something. What is that all about?
I have no idea.
Is it the new
Something about
system to
a
pay?
$450.
Oh,
So I think that what they may have been referring to is in our newsletter, there was information that you can pay by phone.
Right.
It's not anything to do with expediting your bill, but it's just another avenue to
Here-
pay your bill by.
To save
And there
postage.
is, because it's a credit card charge, there is the convenience fee charge of $4.50.
Yeah, it says save postage by paying your bills. This lady sent this to me. I didn't actually see this. Where was this oh, the city
It's in the newsletter.
Okay, I missed
Yeah,
that.
and it's been in there before.
Has it?
Yeah.
Interesting. The last thing is, Bob Elliott, just like to thank the city council and the police department for your guys' support. He really appreciates it. There's been some really interesting, things happen recently. It had to happen eventually. They're starting to eat themselves, you know, they start turning on each other and here it comes. So, there's a lot of false news out there, be aware. I just saw one today that they accused Bob of stealing signs. And if you know Bob Elliott, him stealing a sign is like Captain Kangaroo doing heroin, you know? It's, it just doesn't fit. So, anyway, it was a false page put up by a individual that used to be on the city council in Modesto, used to be the head of the Republican Party there, who was dislodged from that position for some other reasons, I'm not sure why, but anyway. So if you see it, it is a false statement, and the posting has been removed, I guess, today. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Alves. Just have a couple things really quick. Again, I'll throw, once again, Stanislaus Street into that speed bump pad. It's really nice to hear that the results are, so far, very positive for that. I mean, there's nothing like reading on that Escalon residents' Facebook page, about speeding in town, and you're scrolling, and you're reading, and you're scrolling, and you're reading, and you're scrolling, and you're reading, and everybody's in the same boat on this one, so I'm glad that that's working out well. I really would like to thank the staff once again for all the work that everybody did coming together and assisting the Kiwanis Club with this last weekend, with the state of the parking lot at the community center. I know nobody wanted it this way. We were told it wasn't gonna be this way, but it was this way. So, like I say, I want to thank everybody for doing everything that they did, from Tammy and negotiating, and from the PD helping you, assist people in and out, and from Justin and your waiters pumping holes, out on, what was that, Wednesday or Thursday? I forget what day it was. In your
Friday.
water boots, yeah, so, but, it helped out an awful lot, and so, thanks again, everybody, for coming out. We do have a closed session. If you'd like to stay later, that's great, but, we have to go in now, so, closed session time.